I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Cranston City Plan Commission, regular August meeting. For those of you who caught the tail end of the previous meeting, that was an advertised workshop on the comprehensive plan, one of several. And for those of you who've stayed with us the whole time, thank you for your patience. Okay, for tonight's agenda, we're going to hold on the approval of minutes until the next meeting. First order of business then is appointment of administrative officer for assistant director and principal planner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Over the past month, we've been busy with the hiring process. We have found Beth Ashman to replace Ken Kirkland as the assistant director, principal planner. She's got a number of years of experience, AICP. She's the board member of Mansfield Town Planning Board. She's been on there for about 20 years. And we welcome her to the board. And like all of our new employees, we need to swear them in as administrative officers. So my recommendation is to make Beth a administrative officer for the commission.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion. Moved by Commissioner Coop, seconded by Commissioner Barbieri. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Okay, subdivision and land development projects, Pavilion Avenue replat.
All right, Mr. Chairman, very briefly, we saw this. This will be the third time we've seen this application. Last month, there was a question about the notice, and the commission voted to continue this matter pending re-notice to the public. Some members have called me from the public and said, can I please stop getting notice about these meetings because they're the certified mail and they have to go to the post office. So we double and triple checked the notification radius and everybody's been notified. So here we are again. Those certified notices do take longer to get to people, and people take longer to pick them up, which is a problem we're going to rectify this fall when we do some zoning changes. So, I will hand this back over to the applicant, and if he has anything else to add to this application, we can, get this thing going again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dylan Conley, attorney on behalf of the applicant. I think what I'll do to start is just briefly reintroduce the project. I know that many, if not all of the members here have seen this before, but for the sake of clarity on the record, what you see are 4 lots, one very large interior lot in the screen in front of you with a smaller ancillary lot immediately abutting it, and 2 vacant lots that are immediately on Pavilion. This satellite imagery shows the layout more clearly. What we're looking to do is to build 2 duplexes in that large back green area, which will be accessed by those two smaller lots that have the immediate frontage. That is the condition that it was in at the time of our acquisition. What we're here for tonight is we're requesting relief because the frontage is insufficient. Not that we're looking to reduce frontage, the existing frontage is insufficient to access the property in the back. Each of these lots are, I believe, 13,000 square feet. The requirement for a 2-family home is an 8,000 square foot lot. We are well below any issues with minimum lot size or any density considerations. And since we've been here a few times, and we did have a lively discussion previous meeting about the doctrine of administrative finality, I would request a formal vote, Mr. Chairman, on whether or not this application is subject to the doctrine of administrative finality. The discussion at the previous hearing, without reiterating the entirety of it, is that we're submitting underneath different rules and regulations and different elements and standards. So because it is the application itself in terms of the design of the lots is the same, the distinction and the reason why the doctrine of administrative finality does not apply is because the regulations are different, in particular, the board with jurisdiction, as well as the elements for the review. So as a preliminary matter, I would request a formal vote on that question.
Correct. And Mr. Chairman, we're just doing this again, just in case there was of the notice issue. That's why Mr. Conley is requesting the vote again.
Okay, well, I'll accept a motion. What are we looking, doctrine of administrative finality? Is that what we're looking at?
Is not applicable because it's a materially distinct.
Okay, would
consideration.
not be applicable in this case. Moved by Commissioner Coop, seconded by Commissioner Mancini. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have the owner and applicant here with me today. I would like to sort of allow them to present and then briefly discuss the public was able to present to this board at the previous meeting, but we were not. And so there were some things within the public presentation that I feel obligated to respond to make sure there's clarity on the record on who's responsible for what, et cetera. But to start, I would like to call up the owner and the applicant. You just state your full name for the record.
It's Adalberto Espinal.
You swearing him in?
We don't, we just accept the
Could he-
comments.
Could he spell his name, please?
Could you just spell your name for the?
Adalberto. Espinal, Espinal.
Yes. So
Okay, thank you.
So,
the
Uh,
first thing I want to ask you is, are you familiar with the neighborhood?
yeah, I live in the neighborhood for almost 20 years.
Okay. And when you say you live in the neighborhood, it's my understanding that your family was raised in this neighborhood. Can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Yeah, my kids, I had 3 kids. My kid went to Gladstone Elementary School and then Bain Middle School. And then he finished high school right here in Cranston East, both my daughter and my son. And my daughter is already graduated from college. She's psychology and worked for the city. And my youngest son just graduated this year for the high school. It's going to go to Rhode Island College.
So you're looking to build 2 duplexes, is that correct?
2 duplex, yes.
And what is the purpose of those duplexes?
This is a family project. I just live across, I used to live across the street from that land. And my mother and my father live with me. My daughter and my biggest son. So what I'm looking to do here is like a family complex. So it's gonna be 2 duplex, one for me and my wife, another one for my mother and father. My father is 87 years old. My mother is 74 years old. My daughter, she's already married. She's going to live in one of the next property, the duplex. And my biggest son is 32 years old. He has 2 sons. He's going to live in the 4 unit, the number 4.
I gotta grab my notes, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to walk them through the specific elements, and then I'm going to turn to some of the public comment. I think that might be the cleanest way to approach it. What do we hear about tonight? What is the relief that we are requesting?
We have a pretty big property, and we just need the front release too. That way I can build my dream home.
So it's the narrow frontage that you need to
Yeah,
access the large.
the
lot in
access,
rear?
the access is, yeah, that's what we need.
And was it like that when you acquired the property?
Yeah, when I bought the property, it was exactly that. Yeah.
So you haven't done anything in the past to change the way that frontage is?
No.
It's just the way it's always been?
No.
And so you just testified that you're familiar with the neighborhood. You've been in the neighborhood for about 20 years? is
20
that
years,
correct?
yeah,
So are you familiar with the character of the neighborhood?
yeah.
And so do you think there are other similar properties in the area, other duplexes in the area?
They have right next to the property, they had two duplex house, two-family, right next to.
And the size of the lots you're seeking to create are these lots larger or smaller than what's in the neighborhood?
This double the size, what was the neighbor, it's double the size.
Mr. Chairman, I actually do have a printout. This is the city's records on the number of duplexes and 3 families in the area. May I introduce this? Take one down. So what you see there is actually, an associate in my office took the time to just highlight and number the number of duplexes within the radius area. I believe, without looking, I think it's about 24 duplexes and 2 3-families within the radius. So certainly, in addition to the testimony from the owner and applicant who is familiar with the area, there is the records itself indicating the number of duplexes that are in the area. The last question that I want to ask you is, if you're not granted the relief tonight, would that be more than a mere inconvenience? What would happen if you were not granted the relief tonight?
I really wanted to have my family together. That's why the way we grow up. And then if I don't get it, I don't want to be available to have everybody, I would like to take care of my mother and my father. It's very old people. And I would like to have my daughter and my son live with me together. That's what I wanted to do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, there was a lot of presentation at the previous meeting in regard to walls that had gone up and debris that was in the area. And the public, I think at times, was clear about the time frame of all those things involved. But I do want to state for the record, and we're happy to answer any specific questions from this board, that the issues that were being raised from the public were a prior owner. This owner, at the time of acquisition, essentially cleared the site. The condition that it's in today is improved as a result of this current owner. I don't have a demarcation line from the public on exactly what things they were complaining about from which dates, so it's hard for me to say exactly what happened when the owner became involved. But a great deal of the nuisances they complained about were from a previous owner, not from this applicant.
Could you just clarify when he became the owner of this property?
When did you buy the property?
It's 2022, January.
January of 22.
Yeah.
So, in terms of any of the nuisances at the site, prior to that time, they don't have anything to do with this applicant. The applicant has cleaned the site. The current condition of the site is clean and clear. We did submit photos into the record to that effect. And we're happy to discuss that in detail as the need may be. The other fact I wanted to point out relative to each of the standards and all of the findings, we have within the record, the surveyor produced a narrative and in their capacity basically stated that it meets the standard, and these are relative to the older standards, which were stricter and more stringent. When at the time of the original application, we received a favorable opinion from the planning department. We received a favorable opinion from this board for roughly the same application under more strict standards, almost identically the same application under more strict standards. And now again, there is positive findings throughout the report from the planning department, again, a second time. So within the record, there is our own expert. There is this board's positive findings and 2 sets of positive findings from the planning department as to all the standards. So without belaboring the point any further, I would be happy to answer questions or at least reserve some time to respond to any concerns raised in public comment.
Okay, are there any questions, of the applicant from the members of the commission at this time? Okay. Seeing, oh, Commissioner Frias, did you have, oh,
Just getting comfortable.
okay, I thought I could see you going for the microphone. Okay, thank you. But if there
Thank you,
are
Mr. Chairman.
further questions, we'll, if you'd be good enough to respond to. Okay, any members of the public wish to be heard on this matter who are here this evening?
Good evening. My name is Lori Grover, 3 Pavilion Court. I spoke at the last meeting in opposition of this project. First off, I would like to thank this committee for affording the neighbors who are here tonight the opportunity to speak with council and postponing until tonight. A couple of things respectfully we can talk about back and forth. There are some questions, I guess, that we have because there's some conflicting information that I'm picking up on this evening specifically. Yes, the property was in fact in worse condition when it was owned by Mr. Moretti. He was turning it into a salvage yard. But right now, today, and had I known this was going to be a topic of conversation, I would have taken a picture. Some of the grass on that property is this high. So it is not being maintained. On the property line where there is what I would call an inferior fence that runs the entire perimeter from the Pavilion Avenue entrance all the way back to the back line of that property, the fence is buckling and it wiggles. It was not permitted and was not installed properly. So towards the front of that line where there would be the access driveway on the right, there was an enormous, I was told it was called a cigar tree that had been there for years.
Now,
The stump was,
excuse me, ma'am, are you for the fence, just so the board members know,
Yeah.
is the fence on the left driveway or the right driveway?
it's on the right driveway,
All right.
up against the, no, it's the other driveway on the other side.
That
Okay, yeah, and that runs all the way back.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted for the record.
Sure.
Okay.
So actually, if you can see on the right side of that fence, that was what is, I was told is called a cigar tree that was probably 60 or 80 feet. When Angelo came in and bought that property, he just basically cut the top of it off and left it there. So now, I liked the tree, actually. It was part of the environment. That's what happens. And that's almost what it looks like today. And every once in a while, they come in, they whack all the greenery off it, and then there's this enormous stump that's on the property line. So we have some differences of opinion on that particular issue. The other one that I understand, I was trying to hear, there was some chatter, so on the administrative finality issue, I think the thing that we need to ask, do people get to come back and refile an application simply because they're hoping to get a different result? My understanding is that administrative finality applies unless any zoning to the city has changed or the plan for the development has changed. I don't believe any of those things exist. I could be wrong. But this is the decision letter from the Office of Zoning Board of Review denying this. So I think we do need to ask the question, why are we here again? And the concerns, when I was here last month, I passed around pictures of what this property looked like and what it still does look like and the things that have been unaddressed. So I think there does need to be a broader conversation. The other question that I guess respectfully that I would ask is, I understand, sir, that you lived on Fountain Avenue. You owned that home. I'm sorry? You used to live there though. So you're saying that you used to live
Oh,
there.
hold on,
it's-
ma'am.
Okay,
Can you
okay,
just,
sorry.
yeah, direct
So that
everything
was-
toward them and then they.
So
can
that was a
explain.
very large home, I think like 8 or 9 bedrooms. So that property was sold, but now he's building two families. And he's gonna live there. It's just like things aren't adding up. We were told prior to this, one of the neighbors, that he was looking to just expand his backyard. So, I mean, there's just a lot going on here. We don't seem to be getting any straight answers. But I can tell you one thing, I bought my home in 1985. It is a single family when it was being built. There are other duplexes on my street, Pavilion Avenue. When those homes were owned and occupied by the owners, they were well maintained. That is not the case anymore. We have siding that's falling. We have gutters that are falling. I'm looking at that outside my window every day. If there's no guarantee that he's going to live there. And if these properties are sold and they're not owner occupied, we're left with more of a mess in this neighborhood. So I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone might have, but I would hope that this committee would uphold the decision that was made, because it doesn't seem that anything has changed in accordance with the rules of administrative finality.
Commissioner Frias.
First, I just want to ask you, I'm going to ask you a question in a minute, but just to explain administrative finality. The issue is that state law changed between the time that that decision was made, what was in effect, and what it is now. That's the change. There's least relief was a part of the change in state law, okay? So that's the reason why I voted that administrative finality was not applicable. I want to ask you about the fence and a couple other things, so I understand clearly what you're requesting. On the fence, what's the problem with the fence? It's like broken down. Well, I'm just trying to understand what you want. If you could wish, what you want done to that fence, what is it? And what's the problem with it exactly?
Okay, so the picture there isn't really clear, but if you look where that clump of tree is,
Yep.
that fence, you can see it runs all the way to the back of the property. I live across the street from that gray house. The fence was put in, but the posts weren't cemented in. So it's buckled and it's crooked and it's leaning and it's not falling down. I'm not suggesting that, but
You want it, so your preference is that to be either repaired or replaced with an appropriate fencing that's sturdy?
I think it needs to conform to the same standards that we all have to, that it be installed properly and cemented and straight and not fall down when there's windstorms.
Okay, that's why I'm trying to understand what you're looking for,
Yes.
basics. The grass you said is approximately, I can't, weeds, but about, what's that, 3 feet, 4 feet?
In some spots, that area right there where the guide wire is showing, that particular patch right now is all overgrown.
Yeah. Is there any other conditions on the land that you find objectionable as a neighbor specifically? You mentioned the fence, you mentioned the grass.
There is still a boat parked back there. There
boat?
is still some debris that's in that back right-hand corner.
And so you're talking about debris, including a boat, like a big boat you go take to the water,
On a
right?
trailer, yes.
A trailer, okay. All right, I just want to understand what your specific objections are. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Do we have other questions, comments from please come on up.
Okay, my name is Judith Forts. I live at 30 Pavilion Avenue. I've been in my house about 27 years. And I'm not gonna look at him and I'm not gonna do what she did. I'm gonna just show you, okay, right now. This is what landlords, owners that don't live on the property, this is what it looks like right now. I called the city about 3 or 4 weeks ago. It's high. Right behind my house.
Ma'am, yeah, so rather, unfortunately, we can't, this could go to court and we can't We don't want to take your cell phone. So if you could just describe the photo that you took and the height and whatever you're showing to us, that way it's in the record.
Okay, let me just tell you, about 4 weeks ago.
Okay.
I called the city. Carlos knows me very well because I call him all the time because it's in my backyard and it's disgusting. Take pride in my property. And called the city on Arlington Auto Body, and I called on Zero Pavilion, whatever the avenue is called. It's about, my fence is 6 feet high. That scale of how high up it is, the dirt, because it's dirt, it's at least 4 feet high. And I'm not gonna keep calling, but it's ridiculous. I have to go on my backyard to enjoy my deck and see 4 feet high of weeds that are not taken care of. It's a problem, and it's been a problem ever since the original owner sold that property because she went in a assisted living or whatever it was. So my thing is, I'm gonna tell you this. He finally said that he doesn't live on the premises, which on July 2nd, the woman that was speaking for the lawyer's office said that owner was gonna live on the premises, because I brought up this big thing about a lot of the landlords that are landlords don't live there, they don't take care of their properties, and I gave you guys all pictures last time I was here. You guys have them on record. So to go against what he said, he quick claim deeded that house to whoever, family member, whoever it is. And about 3 weeks ago, on a Sunday night, it was like after midnight, music was blasting. I had to call the police because it's right in back of my house. People have to work. The music was loud as anything. I called the police. I said, can you hear that music? They came and made them turn it down. 2 days later, same thing happened. Like, this is what happens when the owner does not live on the property. Now, some of you guys wasn't here. I don't think she was. When each time I come up with this statement. So I'm gonna just, whoever wasn't here, Mr. Barbieri, I don't think he was here. I only know because he was principal, my kid. And you, I'm not gonna tell you who owned it before. I'm gonna just give you a quick statement. Because some of the stuff he said, I'm gonna go against, which is not true. First off, Pavilion Ave is a short street. We only have 1 2-family at the bottom of my hill, okay? And I bought my property, me and my husband, because of the single-family houses there. I've been there 27 years. Up the hill, Pavilion Court, if you go up the hill, it's flat. There is duplexes up there. I don't see them. I don't care. It doesn't affect me. You know, I didn't even go up there when I looked to buy my house there. Pavilion, Fountain Ave has a lot of 2 families, 3 families, whatever it is, but that's another whole side of, it doesn't affect me. It's way over there. So I'm gonna say, on December 2nd, 2020, Angelo Moretti is the one that purchased the property. I've had to call the city inspector several times because he wasn't cutting the grass, blah, blah, blah. Weeds over 6 feet high, blah, blah. He would come out and remove it. He moved all the lot, there was all trees back there, big trees. He moved it with his backhoe. He was out there playing every day like it was a toy, okay? On April 22nd, he started putting up the cinder block wall that's in that picture, about 6 foot high without proper drainage. For the city, big mess, and they didn't do anything. He still built another 6 foot high wooden fence on top of it. Now, at that time, A&E Property had bought it January 24th, 22. So he was doing it while A&E Property had already bought it. I have videos, I have pictures to prove who was out there doing it and building the fence, and the guys that was doing it, I have pictures of their truck and everything, and they said Angelo hired him. But Angelo hired him knowing that he didn't own the property, supposedly A&E did. Okay. Timeline, January 24th, 2022 is when they bought the lots and the house on it. Called the city inspectors after he bought it, same thing, wasn't maintaining the property at all, okay? I'm not gonna read everything. From the time he owned the lots, he would bring unregistered salvage and crashed up cars on the lot at all times of day and night. We have pictures, we have videos, all of us. He also had 2 large boats, he got rid of one, one's still there. They were constantly out there cutting metal pieces off of cars, and they would throw them in a pile. They also had a pile of tires that are still there to this day behind the shed. They built a shed on 9/4/23, they started. They started putting all the metal pieces in it. The city inspector was called several more times about the junk unregistered cars in the lots, and the owner would move some cars and bring more in. I witnessed the owner, I have him on video out there with them, him taking pieces off the cars and putting them in a pile. So I don't know what they were doing back there, but I know I heard them and I watched them plenty of times. I put around August 23rd, he put up a 6-foot fence up with 2 gates with chains and padlocks, so the city inspector couldn't go back there anymore, because prior to that, Carlos would just walk back there, and then he'd go tell him, and he would clean it up a little bit, but right away, he'd start putting more cars and everything in it. So when they don't live on there, they don't take care of the property, and sometimes when they live on there, he's doing shady stuff. Then this city says there's a shortage of homes, and they're doing all this unified. There was something on the news today about housing and stuff. And I think we need affordable housing, not just somebody that wants to put houses back there claiming for family, that doesn't even take care of the property because he doesn't live there and he don't care. We do. More kind of wash, my neighbors and my neighbors and I bought our houses because our street has all single family homes except for the one. And these are the same questions I asked before. Would the variance alter the character of the neighborhood? Would the variance and adding 2 two-family homes lower our home values? Would the variance negatively affect the neighborhood's property values? We are worried about the elevation of the properties that could lead to drainage problems also. And ever since they did that wall and did all that stuff, September of 2022, that was 5 months after that, I had a bad flood in my basement. And it could have been caused by that, but how do I prove it? I don't know. And like I said, I've been there 27 years and nothing ever happened. He already said he doesn't live here, the family lives there now. And I just put most absentee landlords don't take care of the properties and all they care about is the money. Mattresses left outside, right on Pavilion Ave. Angelo Moretti owned that property, Arlington Auto Body. It stayed there for months. And there's a van still up there on Pavilion Ave when you go around this little row house thing. No registration. It's a junk. Called the city. Guy says, oh, I was out of town. Still sitting there. I mean, there's so much that goes on when the landlord, the owner does not live in the house. And sometimes when the owner lives there, they don't take care of it. And it's just disgusting if you're gonna allow somebody to build 2 two-family houses right in our backyard, have no privacy at all. And they said they'll put up a green screen. That's not gonna solve it. We can still see. You'd have to put up a whole thing of trees. And they're probably gonna be facing our property, so we have no privacy. Turn it around and let it face his property. Put some openings so they can drive in over there. Not right. You know, or you guys, a lot of you guys, you can look it up easy, own homes in Cranston. Would you want somebody that goes behind your property? It's not fair. You know, Mr. Pizzula, I talked to him before the July 2nd hearing, and all he did was say, oh, we're gonna get sued for $1 million and blah, 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 blah. So, not right. And how would you guys like it in your backyard? And you're not gonna take care of it, not fair. So, I think that it should be denied.
Commissioner Frias.
If you wouldn't mind, I could ask you some questions about the property.
And he owned it, by the way. He just say he didn't own it at the time when they were doing stuff. Not true. He doesn't live there. He's going by what I said. I have seen it.
I understand your concerns about owner occupancy. I share those concerns. We have limitations under the law about requiring someone to have an owner occupancy, okay? So I want to figure out your concerns about how that property is maintained and how it affects you and your neighbors. You talked about flooding. So your basement was flooded. Bad. Do you have any suggestions that we could do to the property that would avoid some of the flooding that goes to your property?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
Person for that.
Okay, I understand. I just want to understand if you had a suggestion.
Just so you know, trying to get couldn't get one in
I-
that short period of
that-
time, but we'd like to get it.
I understand. Like I said, I just want to ask some questions
I don't
to,
know how-
I wouldn't know the answer either.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm not an engineer.
But I never have.
Maybe he is. I don't know. Okay, so I'm just asking, sorry.
Well, actually, so, here's my property, right? This property is really high, because we're on a hill, okay? So when the previous owner to him that bought it to sell it, because he was gonna build, he moved all the dirt on the sides of the two houses where you see them poles. It was, piled up. He took all that dirt and with his backhoe, whatever you call that thing, and moved it. He was out there every day moving dirt. So he made it high up, so the dirt was like really high. So if that's how it's gonna stay. And then like I said, now you put 4 feet of weeds on it, and now you're gonna have houses, they don't need it down, and it's gonna be, I don't know.
Okay. The other thing you mentioned was a lack of privacy, because they're right next to you and stuff. What, you were talking about, I think, some plants or shrubs. What are you suggesting would give you more privacy?
And
Like-
tell them to take it and put their front and their parking and all that on, outside.
You know what would actually help
No.
me? I mean,
Sorry.
it would, if you, yeah, go talk on the microphone, because sometimes I can't hear and then it's not on the
Very
video.
loud, so that's why I try not to
Okay,
cook it in.
okay. I just,
Oh,
like,
it says
you
do
speak
not
very
speak.
quickly and sometimes
Oh,
I
all right.
can't hear it, sorry.
So previous, there was the whole lot back there behind my house, which is 30 Pavilion Avenue, and JR's house. There used to be all trees. And the previous owner, Angelo, oh, sorry, was out there, like I said, with his backhoe, doing whatever. Building that wall, that illegal 6-foot cement wall on top of an already existing wall, and then the 6-foot fence on top of that. So I can barely see 148 Pavilion Ave, but I can see that whole lot because it's in the middle. So 148 Pavilion Avenue, his old house was here. My house and our house are here, and that lot's like right smack in between. But the encroachment wall where the, problem is, between Arlington Auto Body and Pavilion Avenue, where that wall was built, there's an encroachment issue. I don't know who it belongs to, either AA&E or Angelo Moretti, Arlington Auto Body.
It's encroaching on your property, this
No,
wall?
Them two,
Excuse me?
AA&E, which is who he's from, and then Arlington Auto Body, which been there waiting for anybody.
And it's his wall that's encroaching on somebody else's property?
Yeah, I don't know who's it is,
Okay.
but it says it right on that thing right there. If you look on the left, where it's long and skinny going up and out, his lines going this way.
Yep.
That's where the fence is. It says it right on the encroachment.
Okay.
So there's an encroachment there, and there's another encroachment where that W is up the top.
Would the removal of that wall assist you in any way?
Make it proper drainage.
Excuse me, proper drainage?
Proper drainage, so-
Okay, that's what I was trying to ask
Yeah.
about the
I know
drainage
it's
issue.
not Right, so I have to look at it, it's not properly, so the drainage.
Okay, that's basically my questions. Thank you.
Excuse me, Lord.
But, yeah,
And the city inspector knows, Carlos. He said they had talks with them about that wall when they was building it, cause I called when they was building it. And Angelo gave him a hard time and they was going back and forth. I've been to, Sakinasa before, so I talked to them about it and like they don't do anything. So it doesn't help when you complain and people are doing stuff illegally and no one does anything about it. And like I said, I've never had a flood before. I cried my eyes out. There was a ton of water down there.
Commissioner Lanfear.
Just, if you wouldn't mind.
Sorry.
No, that's all right. Just so that I understand, I want to be sure I have the right piece of property that you own. Can you point
Mine?
out to me in words on that?
You want to know where I live?
Yes.
Okay. See the, down on the right-hand side with the little deck in the back with the white little square deck right there? And the cars behind it, that's Arlington Auto Body. They have all junk cars and everything back there. Yes, I have a deck back there. I'm retiring in February of next year, so I want to be able to enjoy it. Nope, that's his property. The white one, that one, yeah, right. And see, the wall is right there after the cars. So it's a little bit,
So your view of the properties that are before us tonight is that diagonal view?
yes, yep,
Into that area?
yes.
Okay. And where you said that soil was built up and the contour of the soil changed,
Right there.
can
that
you
whole-
in words point out to me for the record?
Okay, see where the
Where
cars
that
are, the
is.
red car, right?
Yes,
And then there's a blue car in front of it.
yes.
That wall right there, you see the little grayish color first, that's the original existing wall. It's really skinny in the front, then there's a little dirt on it,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and grass, which I called the city on that because it was weeds over my fence like 4 feet, they just came and cleaned it up. But there's the little brown in the middle, that's grass, and then that's the fence, and then there's another big thick cement thing underneath it. I don't measure, but it's like big gigantic blocks of cement. And then the fence on top of it. So that whole thing going back there is the fence that he built.
And
And-
can you tell me approximately what the level of the ground or soil
mean,
or
what-
dirt is when you stand next to that?
Okay, when I go in my property, my fence is 6 feet high. So the cement wall that he bricked, the second one that he put up, the cement is probably about the height of my fence. And then the 6 foot is on top of that. So the 6 foot is about 6 foot higher than my fence.
But that's the fence. How
Yes,
about the soil?
the dirt itself,
If you know, you need to,
yeah, about 7 feet, because it's higher than my fence. So my fence is 6 feet. And like I said, yeah. I'd say from the ground, say the ground up, it's probably about 7 feet high with the weeds and everything.
the dirt itself.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
very high.
All set. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Kevin Grover. My wife Lori and I, we live at 3 Pavilion Court. I've been there since 1995. I just want to point something out that's not visible really for you folks from these aerial views. The rickety fence that's been the subject of discussion, that's in the upper left part of the corner, the picture. What's not shown there is the fact that on the inside of that fence on this property is a slope. So you're going to have an erosion problem, and that's going to have to be reconciled probably with some sort of very expensive retaining wall. I mean, if you look if you're staring at it and you look at the upper side there, what's going to be a driveway for those homes, there's a dirt slope there with no retaining wall. When you get to the next stage of this project and you get like erosion people that know how all that works and they got to inspect things, you're gonna have to build some sort of a retaining wall because you've got probably a 4 to 5 foot slope on the inside of this property that this picture does not show. And that's going to be an erosion problem unless it's addressed. Another thing that, if I may, earlier, this gentleman mentioned the character of the neighborhood. Okay, our home, I'll invite any of you to come and see what we look out and see from our front window. Okay, when you go up and when it splits to go Pavilion Avenue, keeps going to the right, Pavilion Court starts to the left. Our house is in that corner. It's a raised ranch and it's up pretty high. Since the beginning of, we've always had, this used to be a nice green lot. There was a big row of tall trees that gave privacy for the people on, Fountain Street. They had privacy, we had privacy. And the gentleman that bought this, who's been mentioned a few times, Mr. Moretti, he basically went in there with earth moving equipment, ripped all the trees out, messed with the grade of the land, which is why there's a flooding problem in certain spots, okay? You talk about the character of the neighborhood, and now we've been looking at, basically blew a hole in the way this neighborhood looked with no permits, and then he sold it and walked away. And another thing that's rather important If you look on the lower side, you'll see those cars there on the other side of the fence Mrs. Fort was mentioning. What you don't see from this picture, okay, that you would have to actually have a site inspection, is if your picture went a little farther this way, there's essentially a junkyard there. There's dozens of cars that are there. I mean, I know he runs a body shop. There's no way he's working on all those cars at the same time. And we've got a rat problem. Everybody knows about that. It's been a thorn in the side of the management of the city for years, and us. We spend $400 a year with Griggs and Brown with rat boxes, okay, on our property in our backyard. I can almost guarantee you, if you walked in, what's not shown in this picture, if you were able to draw this picture back and get an aerial view, you'd see dozens of junk cars just sitting there. I can almost guarantee you start walking through that area and you start banging on those cars, you're gonna see rats coming out. Okay, we all know there's a rat problem. We pay to have the rat poison boxes put out in our backyard. I don't see how that can go unaddressed. Besides, let's face it, they travel, they burrow, et cetera, et cetera. That really, in my opinion, I don't know how that would pass whatever city ordinance may apply to having junk cars, but there are a lot of them there that are not shown in this picture. So, like I said, I would invite anybody to come and, come to my house, look out my front window. What used to be a nice big green field, we used to see woodchucks, we used to see animals and squirrels playing out there. There were trees to give us privacy. There were trees to give the people on the other street privacy. That's all gone now. And I don't know, it's changed the look of the neighborhood and the character of the neighborhood forever. Now, as far as maybe there are plans to plant fast-growing trees or shrubs or something like that to reclaim some of the privacy that we had, all of us in this neighborhood, I would certainly hope so if this plan goes forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I was gonna ask the question of the gentleman, so I
Yes.
understand this.
Did you, yeah.
If
go
you
ahead.
go.
Yeah.
I'm like, because like you guys have said, I don't live in your neighborhood, but I care about it because I want to make sure if this goes forward, I
Thank
want
you.
to address your issues. First of all, that junkyard, is that his property or is it somebody else's property?
That's his.
Okay,
It's got to be his. No, it's not. Well, what you can see there, I believe that's Arlington Auto Body's property.
but that's not his property.
No, sir, no, it is not.
Okay,
It is
so-
not this gentleman's
Okay,
property.
that's why I wanted clarification because I cannot. Arlington Auto Body is not before us. So doing things I can't. You understand? They're not
I
before us.
understand.
Okay,
I understand.
all right. The slope issue and the retaining wall. Where would you want the retaining wall to be for the slope?
If you're looking towards the upper left of the picture, if you start over on Pavilion Avenue, you can see it looks like a bluish or white line that goes all the way to the back of that property.
Yep.
That's the fence. That's the fence it's a stockade fence that's kind of clippy.
Okay.
Okay? What's on the inside of that fence is a slope.
Is
It's a
it-
dirt slope, and I would think you're gonna have an erosion problem. When you go to put a driveway there, it's gonna,
I understand. That's what I wanted to
yeah,
understand.
that really needs to take a look at,
And-
what's gonna happen there.
And you talked about how there was all these trees and chipmunks and stuff. Where would you want the tree, do you want the shrubbery, the trees? You were talking about bringing it back. You'd be like obviously on the perimeter of this property.
Well, I guess that would depend on whether or not the homes go the project with the houses go forward.
Yeah.
There used to be a nice level of privacy there.
Yeah.
That's no longer there. There was the trees that were there along the back line of that property that this gentleman bought.
Yeah,
They were big.
yeah.
We're talking 80 to 100 feet. There were shrubs along the ground. I mean, you could barely see what was on that street. You could barely see the houses that are in the lower left, but
They're gone.
that's,
So you're talking about the back line of that property?
yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Jorge Martinez. I live on 44 Pavilion Avenue. I bought the house about a year and a half ago, not knowing all this was gonna happen, to be honest with you. If I would have known, I would probably change my mind. I bought it because I have a little daughter, 7 years old, and I just have a newborn. And I wanted to look for a safe, neighborhood. And we found the house, we fell in love with the neighborhood. The neighborhood was perfect. Now, with this, plan of building new houses, our bigger concern is the safety of our kids. I know there's some people on the other side of the house that live there that sometimes they just sit there and smoking. They have loud noises, like on a Saturday, Sunday, there's 11, 12 o'clock, and they have parties. Like, well, I'm not sure, I think he owns the house. I'm not sure who owns the house, but there's people there and the neighbors are just like crazy. My other concern is the same as my neighbors. Flooding is one of our bigger issues right now, where it rains like today, my backyard gets flooded. Thank God it hasn't get into the basement, but I'm assuming that once, they start building and they start raising up the foundations and stuff, and level with some of that water is gonna go into my house. So, my biggest frustration is that. Also, again, the safety of my kids, there's 2 driveways right where my house is gonna be, pretty much. So, I mean, I don't think I'm gonna feel comfortable letting my kids play in the front yard, not knowing that, somebody is gonna just drive in there when don't care how, if the kids are around or anything. The other concern, like my neighbor was saying, rats is a bigger issue in there. I know since he had all those cars in the back, there was a lot of rat activity. We had to call an exterminator to get there. Since he removed the cars, they still being a big rat. As a matter of fact, like about 2 weeks ago, I killed a huge one in my backyard, and I had to call the exterminator again. They had to put more traps on the outside of the house so they don't get inside the house anymore. So that's a big problem. I'm paying $800 a year just an exterminator that it could be avoided if none of these cars and none of this junk that they have in the back. If you go back to that picture where it shows the houses, there's boats, there's cars, there's trash in the back of that house, the little shed house that they did. There's so much crap in there that I had no idea what they have. So all that stuff is creating, like rat house everywhere. And like my neighbor was saying, I have pictures too, where the grass is like up to my height pretty much right now. And again, he cleaned it last time because he knew we were gonna show here. But other than that, they don't take care of the land. So my biggest concern is that he's gonna build the houses. He keeps saying, oh, it's for my mom, for my dad. He could sell those houses or he could rent them to whoever he wants, not take care of the land, not take care of the properties like he's doing right now. And we're gonna suffer. We are gonna be the ones that call in the city. And we have done it in the past when he had the cars there. City never showed up, or when they did, he put a fence right on one of the driveways so the city couldn't get in. So eventually, we're gonna be in a bigger situation where he's not gonna take care of the property. The people that's gonna live in those houses not gonna take care of the property. I'm actually dealing with some of the repairs that supposedly they did to the house that they sold me because they didn't do it correctly. I just found out the other day one of my tile floors broke. I took it apart. They didn't even put a subfloor on it. They just put cement and they put the tile on top of it. So, it's concerning, especially when you see somebody that hasn't been, honest. I would say straight because, again, we call the city so many times. He only does it when you guys show up. But other than that, he's never there. He doesn't take care of the property and he won't take care of the property. He's just there for the business. I'm gonna say it straight. So that would be my major concern. Thank you. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anyone else here would like to be heard? Let me just ask Mr. Lima if there is anyone online who would like to be heard on this matter.
There is no public comment.
Okay, no public comment. All right.
Okay, does somebody else?
Hi, my name is Franjo Sagid, and my house is right next to, Judy's house, the one right in the middle. That's my house. One of my biggest concern is, the noise and the way they don't maintain the grass grows about like past my fence. It's about this high. I can show you some pictures, but I don't have it. I don't have them printed. So anyway, yeah, that's one of my biggest concerns is the noise. Before, as you can see, the driveway is adjacent to my driveway, and after that picture was taken, I guess they blocked that. A police car had to go in there for something, I don't know what. And the day after that happened, they put up a fence. Before they put up a fence, there was 24 hours, the noise just goes back and forth, and we can hear it from our bedroom, you know? And the grass, they just don't cut it all the time. Yeah, she had to call the city one time to have it mowed. And that's the only time they would do something about the grass. And it's still up here right now. It's about this high right now. And also, I don't think the area is stable enough to have something built on there. It's because when they cut all the trees down, they just filled all the dirt and soil back into the ground. So that's one of my concern. Any question?
All right. Thank you.
Sorry, Jorge Martinez, 44 Pavilion Avenue. I've completely forgot. One more thing that we have mentioned a lot of times is the privacy. If you guys notice, my house is gonna be right in front of the other houses, so I know our neighbors are concerned of the privacy in the back. Mine is, it's gonna be even worse because it's gonna be right next to both of the properties. So our privacy and I'm gonna just say it, the safety of my kids, that's my number one priority. And I'm pretty sure everyone who has kids, that's what they're looking for, to have a safe environment for your kids, a privacy somewhere where they can play in the backyard without even thinking that somebody else is looking at them or, they're gonna do some damage to them or anything. So, that will be, and the other thing is the light posts that are out on the driveways. Not sure what the plan will be if this goes forward. There's two actual light poles on each of the driveways. That one, and there's another one on the other picture, but it doesn't show.
Could I ask what you want to do with those poles? What are you talking about?
Are they, because I'm assuming that you're gonna have to either move them or, because they're right on the property line right now. So both, the other picture, can you go back? Sorry.
Hey, Mr. Frias,
Right
I
there.
believe, yeah, right. Yeah, Jason, I believe on the original planning recommendation for approval back in the day, as they said, one of the recommendations from your department was to move the poles, I believe.
That's
Which
That's
direction?
probably, that would play itself out during the building permit process and the city council for that permit. So it's really not an issue.
If you move them, which direction would you move them?
We wouldn't be.
Yeah, so
in a
that's,
position to
the
make that-
poles are in the right of, are in the right of way. So
Okay.
I don't believe we would have jurisdiction. We could certainly, the board doesn't have jurisdiction to order order the movement of the poles. However, you could certainly, request something. But it may not need to be moved, or, I mean,
Yeah.
if it's on the property line, it's on the property line.
Right, I don't, at this point, seeing where it is in the driveway, I don't see what the issue is, but that would reveal itself during the building permit process. Looks like it's not in the middle of the driveway, so, but if it needs to move, then there's a process to do that with the Public Works Committee.
Okay. So what will be the other plan for the privacy? What would the applicant will do for the privacy if this goes forward? What will be the plan for us to have a little more privacy and more safe of our children?
So, sir, so what'll happen is the applicant will get a chance to respond. And then if this board chooses to, move forward with an approval, they certainly can put conditions on it. It's not necessarily a back and forth. It's whatever the board decides to put, if they choose to approve it. They're obviously taking all your testimony into consideration. They're asking the appropriate questions, and it would be up to, after the applicant has a chance to respond. Sometimes the applicant says, yeah, we'll do this, and yeah, we'll do that. So the conditions are a lot easier. However, the board has the right to impose reasonable conditions regarding screening and plantings and things like that.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
The chair, at some point, you cannot just let people keep coming up and coming up and coming up and coming up. I'm sure you will,
We're gonna-
because you've been doing it for 15 years, but
Yeah.
I mean,
Last time, I just want to answer your question, Judith Forts, you was saying about the pole. The fire safety guy actually came out, and he's the one that said it in his report, that they have to move that pole on one side because the fire truck won't be able to get up there, just to clarify.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Okay.
I think it's time to, if we've exhausted public comment, I think we would entertain a motion for a closing or no.
but Dylan needs to get.
Oh,
get
right,
to
okay.
respond.
I'm not up yet, so,
Yeah, yeah.
so we're gonna let Dylan.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I mean, the first thing I want to say is, I sympathize with the neighbors. And when I hear a lot of the history of what's happened in this location, in this lot, it sounds like the preceding owner tore up what was a green area and basically didn't respect his neighbors. I think a lot of the concerns that people are raising, things like tall grass, rats, the structural integrity of a fence, proper drainage and the wall and how flooding would work. I think two really important notes is everything will be built to code. Code has a lot to say on how all those things are done. And I mean, to be partially glib, but in all seriousness, we're talking about a contractor and a builder that wants to move in with his wife, and next door, his mother's gonna move in, and next door to that, it's gonna be his daughter. I think the maintenance and upkeep of these parcels are gonna be incredibly high. You know, it's not my skill set, and I'm still running around my parents' house trying to help them out here and there. I think what we're talking about is a problem that's related to the concerns raised by the neighbors, related to the fact that vacant lots that don't have economic value cause harm to their neighbors, and it causes nuisances to their neighbors. And what we're looking to do is to take a problem and turn it into housing, and to turn it into management and upkeep, and really dramatically improve the experience for the immediate neighbors. You know, of all the commentary that was put before us, I don't believe any of them actually addressed the required standards or put evidence on the record that this application did not meet any of the standards. So I would suggest that our application rests on the administrative record and the submissions that we've made to this point, that we've met all of those standards. In terms of questions around green screen, we'd be happy to have that conversation. I think that's something that the applicant would want for himself as well. I don't know about the specifics of that, if this board would be comfortable delegating some of that to the administrative officer in the planning department. We can work out the details on exactly how that would work. But I don't think there's an objection from us on that front. And again, as to everything else will be built to code. There'll be city inspectors present in terms of drainage, retaining walls, fence, whatever it may be. you're going to see a huge investment in the vacant lot, and you'll see dramatic improvement for the benefit of neighbors.
Okay, Commissioner Frias.
Mr. Conley, I've heard a lot of testimony. I agree. A lot of this is the prior neighbor, prior owner, but there are still problems there. So I'm just going to ask you some questions to address their concerns, and then you decide how you want to respond. And if I ask about something that is not legally appropriate, I'm sure my city solicitor will correct me. Okay? All right. This grass problem. Will you agree to cut the grass so that's not above a certain
Yes.
inches? I mean,
Yes.
what do you want to agree to?
Whatever is the standard for grass, I have no idea. We will maintain, the grass to a residential standard.
Excellent. Okay. I'm not an engineer, Mr. Conley. And so if I don't say things correctly, somebody will fix it. But this fence, sounds like it's in poor condition on the right-hand side. Are you willing to fix that fence?
Yes, we're willing to repair the fence so that, the condition improves. I don't know exactly what that will entail because I don't know the specifics about the fence, but certainly we will improve the condition of the fence.
Okay. This is a broader question, and I don't know how to kind of make it a condition, but this comment about this debris field that's constantly in the back, will you commit to cleaning up the debris field?
Absolutely. The boat is the owner's boat that he does use.
I
so
didn't
the
ask
boat
about
is
the
sitting-
boat. I didn't ask about the boat. I'm talking about the debris field.
No problem.
Okay,
To the extent it still exists, no problem.
okay. The drainage issue. They were talking about this 4-foot slope and the need for a retaining wall. Do you have an objection if there's a retaining wall over there?
If a retaining wall is required for some sort of code reason, we would certainly do it. But a retaining wall without there being some sort of requirement is an imposition of an expense without a necessary benefit. I mean, we will comply with all stormwater rules and conditions, no problem. But I don't know why a retaining wall would be imposed.
Again, I'm just trying to address the concern that there's flooding into people's into people's basements, and I'm trying to figure out the cause. Again, I'm not an engineer, but I think a retaining wall would not hurt that problem. It would actually maybe improve it.
I mean, we'd be happy to consider it. I also hope that the green screen and plantings would improve that. We can work with the planning department on basically how the stormwater management works in general. Guaranteeing a retaining wall, it just may not. I don't know whether or not that would actually improve it, and it may be a large expense. I just don't know that we can commit.
Dylan, did your client's engineers provide anything yet regarding drainage?
Not to my knowledge. There may be something that he has in his possession, but
So,
the
yeah, so,
documents I have are specific to the application.
yeah, all right. So Steve, what I'm getting at, there's basically, it's a no net runoff. So in other words, in order to get a building permit, they'll have to present something to the city DPW and or the building department that from the engineers that basically says that when they build the houses and put in the driveway, that there's no net runoff. They can't make it any worse than it currently is. So those engineering plans will have to be presented before you get the building permit, basically, when they come in for the houses. So that it doesn't necessarily need to be a condition because it's already a condition before you can get a building permit. It wouldn't be a zoning condition, it's a building permit condition.
Okay, that's why he's here, you know? To help with the flooding, what about making the driveway pervious?
Okay. The client seems to be aware of a draining technology that he would be comfortable using to manage that issue. Again, the commitment on our end will be definitively everything to code, no net runoff as a standard, it'll be subject to an engineer's review, and we're happy to work with the planning department on how green screen works, which would also impact that same sort of runoff question.
Okay, two more things and then I'm all set for you, okay? This green screen, I don't know what exactly that means. Are we talking about trees?
Trees.
Okay,
bushes.
so you agree to put some trees over there so people have some privacy?
Yeah, green screen is either trees, bushes, and or fencing with, sometimes they put fencing, either solid stockade fencing or fencing with those plastic slat, you know,
37.5 foot wall in left field.
those barriers, so.
that make
Okay,
marks.
I just want to understand, like, people talk about green screen, what is this? Okay. The encroachment of the wall on one of the lots. Are you encroaching on somebody's lot with your wall?
When I look at the survey, it appears as though if any property is being encroached upon, we are being encroached upon. But we are certainly not proposing to encroach on anyone's property, and we will commit to not encroaching on anyone's property.
Okay, so that you would agree not to, like, your building, your facilities, whatever you want to call it, is not going to encroach on somebody's property, right?
Correct. Agreed.
Okay, all right, I think I understand the answer. All right, I think I've exhausted a lot of these things I heard. And let my other commissioners, they have some questions.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other questions, comments from members of the commission? Commissioner Lanfear.
Actually, this is, I think, for our solicitor. We're under unified development. I realize this is preliminary plan and other relief. But under, at least the way it once worked was after preliminary plan, it goes to final plan to the administrative officer. But there is the opportunity, I believe, on rare occasions for it to come back to the commission for final plan approval with a recommendation from the administrative officer for things that we're really concerned be put into place
Yep.
properly.
So 99% sure, I'll look it up, Jason, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think under the new law, and Dylan, that any minor subdivisions, which this is, you cannot require it to come back to the planning board for final approval. It has to be administrative approval. But I'm going to check on that because that was one of the, I won't get into it. One of the, the legislature took out the public's ability to comment and the board's ability to control certain things, to make, in their minds, applications more expedient. And I believe that was one of them where you, on a minor, not on a major subdivision, but on a minor, but I'm going to look that up while you keep going.
Okay, and if that was in fact the case, then that would mean that should we suggest or include conditions of approval, we need to be more specific.
Yeah, that I agree, so assume that way the administrative officer has less leeway involved, so.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? Members? Okay, thank you. And we'll just go to the director here for the recommendation.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, this is, heard a lot on this. We've heard this last year. Plan Commission heard the objections, pretty much the same objections. Saw fit to approve the minor subdivision and make a positive recommendation to zoning at that time. And we know that zoning did not successfully pass that variance. Here we are again. It's the exact same proposal under a different set of rules at this point. This is one where I felt that when we originally looked at this, that these lots are pre-existing lots from a time before we did regular subdivisions. The bulk of the land is landlocked. you can't access the lot except for the two legs that go onto Pavilion. They didn't create those legs. Somebody somewhere did to give this area access long time ago. So they're now pleading with the board to say, can I develop the lots with the only access that was left to this land? That's all that's in front of us. Is really all that's in front of us. The subdivision itself is B1. B1 allows single and two family houses by right. The entire neighborhood is zoned B1. Okay, that brown, that's all B1 that allows two family housing. And it is a mix. There's some twos, there's some singles, and that's what B1 allows, singles and twos. So there's no other way to develop this lot without this frontage variance. And again, that's all, we listened to this for an hour and a half, and it comes back to one lot has 40 feet and one lot has 20 feet. That's what we're really going to be asking for the variance. Subdivision itself, in B1, you need 8,000 square feet for a two-family house. These are nearly 14,000. So, you know, before this owner came to the city, there were others who were kicking tires on these lots, saying, how many lots can I get? How many units can I get? Can I get 10 units? Can I get, there was a lot of proposals. And this is the one that's before us. And, you know, quite frankly, it's a modest proposal under B1, and there's no other way to develop this other than what's in front of us. They could be one access. You know, they're asking for two accesses. So, so staff has reviewed this and re-reviewed this quite a few times. So again, I'm pitch hitting for Jonas tonight. I didn't write this memo, he did. So let's run through this pretty quickly. We've talked about the context, talked about the plan. City reviewed this with staff. DPW had no comments. Building inspections had no comments. Fire had no comments. Staff looked at this and we made positive findings from the comprehensive plan. You know, the density in this neighborhood calls for as many as 10.89 units per acre. And this is something we talked about earlier under zoning. The proposed density is 6.58. It's well below what the comprehensive plan and the zoning calls for in this area. We're able to make findings from the comprehensive plan under the land use element as well as the housing element. And you all have this memo as well as the public and everyone. So I'm just running through this. So first, we have to make findings on the variances under unified development. So staff has made findings. So Steve, how do we want to do this? Do we want to do each finding and just read it, or do we want to?
Yeah, I mean, they have the memos in front of us. They can either adopt the staff's findings, or if they think that there's other positive findings that they wish to make in their motion. I mean, you don't need to reread them.
Okay, and the one thing that I will say on this one is that, you know, the shape, the unique physical characteristics of the lots, you know, is one of the reasons for the approval of a variance. This is one of the few times, you know, truly few times, and I've been around for a long time, that this is truly the unique characteristic of this land. And we're able to make positive findings on that. So, Mr. Chairman, we have a number of findings and facts that go along with those reasons to approve the variance. So, if anyone wants to make a comment on that, we can change them. But staff's recommendation is approval of the variances for the two lots. So.
And Kathleen, just to answer your question, they did 452338 on final plan, the legislature did take out the ability on a minor subdivision for the zoning board, for the planning board to require it to come back for final approval. It says the administrative officer shall approve, final. So that was taken out of the new ordinance, the new state enabling law.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Coop.
may I ask a question maybe to Director Matus? He may know the answer to this. One of the proposed conditions is a final plan stamped by a Rhode Island licensed engineer or land surveyor. Would either one of those professionals be the one to attest to the runoff issue, or would it have to be an engineer?
It would be a professional engineer in Rhode Island to stamp the stormwater management plan.
So would you recommend that we should change that condition to require a plan stamped by a licensed engineer?
Yes, a licensed professional engineer.
Okay.
I'd like
catch,
to
thank
add
you.
to that is that, again, I kind of missed this. The plan has to be certified and stamped by a surveyor and the engineer in this case. So not or, so my recommendation would make that and if I had written this. But we're still on just the variance conditions, right? So we have to take care of the variance side of things and then we'll go to the subdivision and land development side of things. Staff recommends approval of the variances for the reasons enumerated in the staff report.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion. If there's no further questions. Yeah, Commissioner Zanolis.
Just a procedural question. Can we approve the variance without approving the subdivision plan, or are they together?
Well, they're two separate votes. They're two separate votes. However, in this case, they're actually making 4 lots into 2. They're not subdividing the lots. They're actually combining the lots. So, but they are 2 separate votes. So you don't get to the subdivision until you decide the zoning issues first.
Okay, so this would be a motion on the variance.
Mr. Chairman, may I
Yes, Commissioner
Just-
Lampier.
ask our solicitor if we were to place conditions on the preliminary plan? If we were to place conditions, where are they appropriately placed? On the variance vote, on the other, or both?
In my opinion, it would be on the variance on the variance vote, because you're, well, you could split them up. Like, for instance, the fencing, the driveway, the screening could be on the variance. However, if
Could we mirror them and put them on both?
you could,
Okay.
on the original subdivision, Kathleen? Yeah.
was very truncated, conditions on this at that February meeting. There was nothing about the wall or screening, for the subdivision. Mm, that was the memo, unless we have the decision. Steve, I don't actually have the decision on the website. Actually, let's see, hold on. Bear with me. There we go. I got it. I have it. Oh, okay, here we are. So the memo didn't have very much, but this is the decision letter. So it's one about zoning relief, water and sewer impact fees. All right, so the condition about the property lines being relocated to the property lines. Again, there is a process with the city council for that, so that would be after all this. Curbing would be extended to the proposed driveways, curb to curb restoration, and removal of all vehicles, garbage, debris, fencing shall occur on all properties in compliance with zoning ordinance prior to final recording.
Could we put that up on the video thing?
Surprised it's not up there. Why did that happen? See, I had to close that other thing. All right, there we are. I had to close the other application. So those are the conditions from that decision.
And certainly those can be kept at the, as conditions of the planning approval too.
So the one about utility poles we could add. Curb to curb is already in there. And we can add the one about, so 4, 5, and 7. We could add to the existing memo.
If I may, this says removal of fencing. The request tonight was for repair of fencing. I just,
Well,
we
we're
want
gonna,
to repair it.
we're gonna have a discussion and we'll figure it out,
Okay.
because I'm going
to make a motion to adopt this findings of fact proposed by the staff and approve the variance so that we can move on and talk about conditions for the plan.
The motion made by Commissioner Coop, seconded by Commissioner Barberry.
discussion, right?
Yeah, discussion. Okay, Commissioner Zadalis.
If I may, picking up on our esteemed council saying we could place the same conditions on the variance and the subdivision plan, I would make a recommendation that we do it in both instances. So whatever conditions we place on the plan, we place on the variance.
That's unified development at its greatest, Rob, so go with it. They wanted unified development. This is what they get, so. But I agree. That's good.
Is there any more enforceability on one decision than the other?
Well, in order, is there any more? Actually, there is different enforceability mechanisms depending on if it's a zoning variance or planning variance, believe it or not.
Is there, so if we do it on both, has more force than one or the other?
No,
It's belt and
Okay.
suspenders.
it's just. All right, moving along.
Did we vote?
We're gonna have discussion.
Yeah. Okay, discussion continues. Commissioner Frias.
All right, I just want to start out explaining my view and then some possible conditions for the consideration of my colleagues. And I'll hear from others as well. I've listened to the comments made by the residents and also by the attorney. The issue here is this is a B1 zone. This is allowed by right. The comp plan, this doesn't exceed the density allowed by the comp plan. So to me, this looks, I can't zoink it based on a lack of zoning, B1 zoning for multifamily. And I cannot say it's inconsistent with the comp plan as to its density, which are things I will do if I don't agree with it. I do care about the fact that this is a mess. And to the maximum extent I can, I will put conditions on it so that this ceases being a mess for this neighborhood, because this mess is destabilizing this neighborhood potentially, or at least the quality of life for these people. So one condition, I mean, we can have all those that we had before, but I'd like to make some changes. One is, I heard that he agreed to maintain the grass at the residential level required by our city. I don't understand why it's so difficult to maintain the grass. When you have, I lived in a neighborhood once and I lived in Providence and I had a tenant, I was a tenant. And my landlord had the grass grow to 4 or 5 feet in the summertime. That's not a good neighbor. So one condition I would have is that the grass be maintained at a level consistent with residential neighborhoods or residential properties. If, by the way, whatever I say doesn't make sense legally, I assume and I request that the solicitor quickly correct me. And if I have an engineering issue, that the public works director can also correct me. Another thing I think is that I'm trying to figure out whether we repair that fence or we replace it. I think there could be fencing on that area, but it should be as a condition that there be fencing around that property and that fencing be in good condition, not in the condition that this is. And again, my colleagues will modify it as appropriate. Also, remove the debris, period. Period. I mean, I'm not talking about the boat. I like boats. Okay, no problem. People go out to water, great stuff. But you cannot have in a residential neighborhood, Fred Sanford's junkyard. Okay? Go do C1, go do C2. Maybe that's where you can do it, but you're not going to do it in a B1. So that's a condition. Remove all debris. Green screen should be a requirement on all sides, if it's feasible, because I like to beat people on privacy. You've made a commitment that you will not encroach on other people's properties. I accept that. And that you agree as a condition there'll be no net runoff, which may include, if necessary, include the removal of the retaining wall and putting a pervious driveway. There's no reason that someone has to live next to a piece of property where the person's just all this water going in their basement. Now, I don't know how it got this bad. I'm sorry it got this bad, but that's what I can see and that's what I can do. So I'd like to hear from my colleagues if they have other ideas.
Let's see. would you like to include that as a motion?
I'll make that a
An
motion.
amendment?
To amend the approval.
Yes, I'll make the amendment. Don't do that yet. We're still having discussion. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Commissioner Lanfear.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with Commissioner Frias's suggestions. I would add, just qualify on the fence repair or installation that it be professionally done.
I'm okay with that.
And on the debris, I would suggest that all debris and materials be removed from the property. And this is a change from our previous condition prior to submission of the final plan. Because obviously there has been and continues to be a problem there, and it will continue, it appears, until they're required to do it. So all debris and materials will be removed from the property prior to submission of the final plan with an affidavit that it was done, with photos included with the affidavit and filed with the administrative officer. I would require that the driveway and paved areas be pervious to minimize runoff and erosion to the greatest extent possible on neighbors' properties. If a fence is put in there, it's not going to, it will help to have pervious areas that will absorb more runoff. And that's why I required that. And I would also prior to the final plan approval, submit an affidavit by a surveyor and registered professional engineer that during construction and as built, there will be no net runoff. And I think, oh, and with regard to screening, I would require evergreen shrubs along all of the property lines that abut others' property. And the reason why I would have evergreen shrubs is because even if there is a fence installed along there or a retaining wall, the shrubs are going to absorb more water and going to make a better screen and an aesthetically better screen as well. So both function and appearance. I would require evergreen shrubs at a distance 10 feet high at a distance of the commonly accepted distance. I'm sure, Jason, that there's
I think 10-foot high shrubs is going to be difficult to obtain on this because and also the property line, it's only 20 feet wide in one of those driveways. So, that might look a little out of place also in a neighborhood like this. So
maybe those should just be along the property lines in the back and side, but along the driveway, whatever is consistent with safety requirements.
Right. So we're talking a fence and landscaping. So sometimes with the fences and landscaping, that the landscaping doesn't grow, it dies because it doesn't get enough sun. So these kind of conditions we've dealt with commercial properties, but we don't usually go this far with residential property to residential property. So I think the fence is probably enough in the areas that need to be bolstered. We can take a look at that. But that's a lot of abrevieties in a neighborhood that might not want that type of a green wall.
Well, I will leave that to my fellow commissioners to discuss a little bit and see what they think. And that is the end of my conditions to add to Commissioner Frias's.
Could I ask a question of the solicitor? Commissioner Lampier talked about requiring a pervious driveway. Is that okay for us to impose that as a condition, or do we?
You can, but I would, so you can impose that as a condition, however, I think the no net runoff would do the same thing. So again, just coming from Narragansett, they like pervious pavement, but in order to have truly pervious pavement, you have to vacuum it every year, and it becomes impervious very quickly. So it defeats the purpose. You're better off conditioning the no net runoff,
Okay.
rather than having pervious pavers, which would be an expense for the applicant, which, again, would break down when the cars are being plowed, or you have, again, the pervious pavement, which clogs up within a year or two. I mean, it really
Okay.
does.
Okay, then the no net runoff with the affidavit.
Accomplish the same thing.
Accomplish the same thing.
And add longevity to the surface.
Then the other thing was the question of the fencing and the green screen. The green, are we talking about, I'm trying to figure out, the green screen's gonna definitely go on the back, I believe, was the discussion that I heard on the back of the property line. And the fencing problem is on the right side. I think that's where the problem is the fence on the right side. And go ahead.
I think you have the problem on the, as you look at it, the right side, but then you also have the problem of the wall with the fence on top and another fence on top of that on this left-hand side.
Okay,
Where the soil, where we had testimony that the soil is up 7 feet or so.
so we could probably just do a green screen, but I don't want to, what the director was talking about, commitment of like a certain 20 feet, 30 feet. I don't know if that's going to work. So, but a green screen on all 3 sides should be sufficient, I think. Unless I hear a little bit different, like if there's a green screen on all 3 sides, I think there should be, I don't want to commit like a certain kind of evergreen or a certain kind of height, because I just don't know what works over here. I want to give a little flexibility.
Yeah, Commissioner Zadelis.
When I believe it was the attorney, in the definition of green screen, I think you used this, made a statement that included fencing earlier.
Well, we're happy to include that within the privacy considerations. What I mentioned earlier was focusing on working with the planning department. Green screen, we want to give all of the individual homeowners privacy. We don't also want to just flood the area with trees that doesn't really have the benefit of it. So, I mean, we're happy to sit down with the planning department with the map, say, okay, here's this house here, there's their windows, we're going to put trees here. There's another house here, there's their windows, we're going to put some trees there. So we want to make sure that we're giving everyone involved privacy, but we're not shooting the moon in a way that's awkward for the sake of the fact that we won't be able to live tonight determine what is the best answer.
Right. Mr. Chairman, I believe the way that we usually do this, and again, this is usually reserved for commercial properties. This is residential to residential. If we want to see this kind of screening, the best way to do it and do it right would be for the applicant to put a plan together, and then we review it. Plan usually prepared by a landscape architect, and they can customize the plan as needed, and then we can put that plan on record if that's what we want. But I'm not an arborist, and I'm not someone who knows which plants are best for this area and the amount of height and light and everything else like that. So I think that if they get somebody who knows how to do good buffering in a residential neighborhood like that, we can work with that. And then, when we're satisfied, we can put it on record.
Yeah, and Kathleen, you can certainly make it subject to the administrative officer's review, because it still needs to be reviewed by the administrative officer.
And that way, we have an expert.
So if everyone's on board, I would like to amend my original motion to include, I believe, all of the conditions articulated by Commissioner Frias, which if he would repeat them now, it would be helpful.
Yeah, and I would add Commissioner Lampier, there are certain conditions where we don't conflict. So one would be to maintain the grass at a residential level, and I would add prior to file plan submission. 2, to remove the debris with the conditions that Commissioner Lampier will articulate after I'm done, right? 3, to repair the fence with the additional conditions that Commissioner Lampier will explain. 4, adequate green screen on all sides of the property. And we can add the additional information that was relayed. And that the property will provide no net runoff, which may necessitate the removal of the retaining wall. And again, Commissioner Lampier had some more information there. So then I hand it over to Commissioner Lampier to further add. As you can tell, this is an actual open meeting. We didn't talk ahead of time.
That during construction and as built, there will be no net runoff.
So I'm wondering if an affidavit is required if we're getting a stamped plan as well. Is the stamped plan equivalent to an affidavit? Is that more?
No, not necessarily.
Okay, then I would include that.
Yeah,
in
a
my
stamp plan is,
motion.
because that's just the plan itself
Yep.
coming from the surveyor.
Okay, then I would include that condition.
I think the other was with respect to the fence. I had added the word professional installation.
And I include that in my motion as well.
And with respect to the debris that they would clean all debris and materials from the property prior to submission of the final plan with an affidavit that it was done, photos included with the affidavit and filed with the administrative officer.
And I would ask Commissioner Barberi if he would second my motion as amended.
On the green screen, design of the green screen.
Yes, and including the screening to be proposed by a landscape architect to the administrative officer.
Okay, so the motion is made and seconded by Commissioner Barberi. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. That motion passes.
So, yep. So now we have to vote on the administrative or the minor subdivision, which is the exact plan which this board approved. I don't know, 7 months ago or however much it was. So my suggestion would be the motion, if you so wish, to approve the minor subdivision with the conditions consistent with the February 7th, 2024 approval.
And with all of the
Yeah,
conditions
no.
that were just recited
yeah,
for the variance.
And the zoning conditions. Just
I
recited.
make that motion with the clarification that the condition for final plan be stamped by a Rhode Island licensed engineer and land surveyor, as well as the other conditions recommended by staff and those conditions articulated in the last motion.
A motion made by Commissioner Coop, seconded by Commissioner Barberry. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the motion passes. Thank you, everyone. Next item. One second. All right, we'll take a 5-minute break. Okay. Okay, we're gonna get started again. Thank everybody for their indulgence. All right, we have another Unified Development Review, McDonald's minor land development project with zoning relief.
Mr. Chairman, this is a fairly straightforward proposal. We have given this proposal approval in the past through development plan review for the expansion of their driveways. At this point, this is coming before the Plan Commission because this is a tear down and rebuild. And I guess it triggers the Plan Commission review for the unified. So they chose a unified route. So here we are. This is not a complicated project, and I'll give the floor to the applicant so they can review their application.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the commission. My name is Christine Dieter from Hinckley Allen on behalf of the applicant McDonald's. With me tonight is Eric DeBrule from Bowler. So as Mr. Pizzula said, this is a project that may seem familiar. We were here in 2019, and this project was approved by both the zoning board for the relief, the same relief that we're seeking tonight, along with approval for the development plan review. So what's being proposed is to demolish and rebuild the existing McDonald's restaurant on the property in essentially the same building footprint that exists right now. The current building has been on site since the 1980s. So what's proposed is sort of a substantial upgrade to the facilities. And in connection with that, there's also proposed to make some improvements to the parking lot and the drive-through circulation, which Mr. DeBrule will talk about in a minute. So like I said, this project was before you previously. It was put on hold essentially due to COVID and the uncertainty about kind of the restaurant market and what was going to be feasible at the time. But the applicant is now prepared and ready to move forward with the project. So we're here tonight requesting preliminary plan approval for the minor land development. And then in connection with that, there are two variances that we need to facilitate the drive-through. And as I said, the zoning board did approve these exact two variances in 2019. One is for the residential speaker setback. And essentially, there is currently one speaker on site that is 62.4 feet from the residential zoning boundary line. There's a setback requirement of 100 feet. What's proposed is to essentially maintain that one speaker location and then add a second speaker that would be 50.5 feet from the residential boundary. So that's one of the variances. And then the second one is that in order to facilitate having those two drive-through lanes, it requires some relocation of the entrance on Webster Avenue to the site. So currently that's over a commercial parcel. And what is proposed is to actually pull that entrance further away from the Cranston Street Webster Ave intersection, but it would be located on a residential parcel. And so we need zoning relief from that as well. So I want to thank Mr. Pizzula and Mr. Brugman for their work on getting this application before you and for the positive staff recommendation. And then if I may, Mr. Chair, I'll have Mr. DeBrule come up and walk us through the conditions. I guess before he gets into that, would you mind stating your name for the record and spelling your name?
Sure. For the record, Eric DeBrule with Bowler Engineering. Last name is spelled D-U-B-R-U-L-E.
Could you provide your relevant professional education and background?
Sure. I'm a graduate of Northeastern University, have my bachelor's of science, civil and environmental engineering. Out of school about 12 years. Yes. That's correct.
And how many projects did you say you worked on?
At least 100. I was in charge of oversight of the design and project management responsibilities as well for this project.
Yeah, so Mr. Smith, in the zoning world, we have to acknowledge people as experts in the planning world. We don't, so we would need a vote to accept him as an expert in planning.
Okay. I will entertain a motion to accept our witness as an expert. Commissioner Lanfear moves and seconded by Commissioner Matus. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there potentially a, were you able to bring up an aerial of the site? We had submitted, I believe, an aerial in the color rendering.
Which, oh, are these the ones that you sent us?
Yes.
Hold on. Let's see if I can find them. Jonas, he had to get sick. Give me one second here. I think he put them in the McDonald's folder. No, these are renderings of the plan. They were sent to us so that we could put them in the presentation. Give me 1 second. That'll be it. Okay, I'm not sure where these.
That's okay. I know you've got an aerial. We could start there. Just I could describe the existing conditions. I'm sure I could explain the rest off of the site plan.
Alright.
Perfect.
I think we can read these. Sorry about that. I know he said that these were,
Nope.
do you want this one that's cleaner or do you want this
We'll
one?
start the existing conditions just to
All right.
explain the existing property. So again, the property is 927 Cranston Street and 419 Webster Avenue. The majority or all of the existing McDonald's property is in the C5 district. And we're also going to propose to develop the property that is in the northeast corner, which is in the B1 district. The property is bounded on the east by Webster Avenue, as well as in the southeast corner is Cumberland Farms, so a gas station. Across Webster Avenue is another gas station. South across Cranston Street, there's an auto sales. And then west on Whipple Avenue, across the road is a laundromat. Everything to the north is residential properties. So just gives you some context of the property itself. Pretty commercialized area based on the existing McDonald's and the uses along Cranston Street. The existing McDonald's about a 4,000 square foot existing use. It has a drive-through with drive-through window. It's accessed by Cranston Street, a full access driveway off of Cranston Street, as well as a full access drive off of Webster Avenue. And then if we flip to the proposed conditions. So the proposed conditions essentially is going to be very similar to the existing, what's out there today. Again, it's going to be a proposed McDonald's use. It will have a drive-through. Site access is going to be very similar. Circulation will be very similar, but it will be a brand new site. So complete demolition of the building, the site, all new landscaping, all new utilities, building, et cetera. Be about a similar sized building, 4,300 square feet with a drive-through and drive-through window. 44 parking spaces where 37 are required, and we would carry through the circulation, that one-way circulation, which is very important for a drive-through use. Off of Cranston Street, we're maintaining the existing driveway, so that will be unchanged. Off of Webster Avenue, we're shifting the existing full access driveway north about 65 feet to allow us to develop that northeastern parcel. The major benefit of the drive-through improvement is that we're now able to get, with the development of that northeasterly property, is to get a side-by-side drive-through. Under existing conditions, you've got the single lane drive-through, and often you can have cars stacking behind that order point because there's no way for cars to bypass if someone's making a long order. By adding the second lane if someone's making a long order in one of the positions at that order point, the next car would recognize someone is stacked there or a car or two are stacked there and they could just use the other lane. And so that makes it much more efficient for McDonald's to take the orders in. That reduces on-site queuing and processes their existing customers more effectively, which will ultimately improve site circulation and things of that nature. So huge improvement to be able to do that on this property. McDonald's has been doing this for over a decade very successfully on any new site, any new project that they have. One additional thing I want to point out is that we're also providing an accessible connection where one doesn't exist today. So off of Cranston Street, we're connecting to the sidewalk that's there and providing a full pedestrian connection accessible through that crosswalk to the front door. To provide additional screening to the residences, there are existing landscaping and fencing we're proposing in the northerly abutter where we're developing into. We're providing an 8-foot white vinyl fence with a 16 arborvitae planted 6 to 8 feet high to create landscape buffering from the residential property. I believe we're exceeding the required 5-foot separation for that landscape buffering. Otherwise, utilities, landscape, lighting, all compliant with the town and local regulations. Stormwater will be upgraded by providing additional stormwater quality unit where one doesn't exist today. So we'll be treating stormwater before it discharges. So that will be an improvement over existing conditions. I think that's, again, the high level. I'll turn it back to.
Let me just follow up with a couple questions. Do you foresee any negative environmental impacts from the proposed renovation?
No, do not.
And you said at the outset that you oversaw the design of this project. Was the project designed to comply with the development plan standards contained in the Cranston zoning ordinance?
Yes, they were.
And in your opinion, does the project comply with those standards?
It does.
All right, I want to talk a little bit more specifically about the variance criteria. So the speakers, as I mentioned at the outset, are proposed to be 62.9 and 50.5 feet from the residential line. Why is it that the 100-foot setback can't be achieved?
Yeah, so there's a couple items. One is the unique shape of this lot. At that southeast corner, we've got essentially that chunk of the property taken out that creates that L shape of the property. And so the configuration as it was previously designed is really the only way this building will fit on this lot, the long way from north to south. The second is the topography of the site. You can see the contouring of the property. One way could be to rotate the building, but there's almost an 8-foot grade change from when you look from the west to the east. So providing the building turned, which could potentially get it out of that 100-foot, it'd just be too challenging for us to be able to rotate it out and work with the contouring of the site. Just by the nature of that building, you need to really be all at the same elevation for a drive-through use like this to work.
And so then with respect to the Webster Avenue entrance and exit, that's going to be relocated on the residential parcel, why does it need to be there?
Yeah, so a couple reasons. Having that driveway shifted to the top corner of the property rather than having it in line in the middle of the middle of the property on Webster Avenue. One, it allows for proper egress for life safety, so large fire trucks to be able to come into the site and have a direct path around the site rather than having to come in and take a sharp 90. So one is for life safety. The second is just for proper egress for just regular traffic on the site. The position that it is in now allows cars to come in and have a very intuitive way to understand with one-way circulation. You can either come in, go straight, which would allow you to circulate around and get to the drive-through, or if you took the first left, it would also get you to the drive-through. Having that shifted down to the existing position would create too many conflict points of whether they go left or right, and in my opinion would be less of a safe maneuver for them to make.
And is the need for these variances due to any prior actions by McDonald's?
No, I think this lot configuration has been here for for decades, and the existing use as it is today is, you know, is how it's been for a long time.
And when you're describing the existing conditions, you talked a little bit about the surrounding area. Will having these two speakers located where you've described and moving that entrance on Webster Avenue, is that going to change the general character of the surrounding area?
No, I don't believe it'll change the general character of the area. I mean, it's very, well, Cranston Street is a very commercialized area. The driveway is essentially where it is, you know, shifting at 60 feet is fairly negligible in my opinion in terms of what's going on in the neighborhood. So I don't see any negligible impacts.
And then in your opinion, are these variances necessary to McDonald's reasonable enjoyment of the property?
Yes, if the variances weren't granted, we wouldn't be able to provide that side-by-side drive-through, which would kind of decrease the efficiency of McDonald's, but would also result in some potential undesirable on-site queuing at the drive-through, which could impact site circulation, which in the worst case could also impact cars stacking back into the site driveways and then impact the public right-of-way traffic.
Great, thank you. So, Mr. Chair, I'll make a few concluding remarks, but we're happy to take any questions now that the commission may have.
Okay, do we have any questions? Commissioner Lanfear.
Thank you. Is it possible to put the slide up with the abutting piece of property that's residential, the B1? Thank you. I think there's a photo. Yes. So my question is, obviously that driveway is being moved 60 feet or so to the right. And will that house remain there, or how much of the property will be, of that B1 property will be used?
Sure, so a fair majority of that property will be used. There's a requirement for 5-foot landscape buffer, so that house will remain. And then we're required to provide a 5-foot landscape buffer from their property. We're providing over the 5 feet, I don't have the number off the top of my head, but about 7 feet. And between that house would be the 8-foot white vinyl fence that we're proposing, the arborvitae screening, and then that's all on top of a landscape wall. So we've thought through some of that screening previously.
Thank you.
Sure.
Other questions for the applicant? Okay. Is there anyone present who would like to be heard on this item? Mr. Lima, is there anyone online who would like to be heard on this item?
There is no public comment.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, this is the project we were very familiar with over the past few years, especially with development plan review. We gave a lot of attention to the northern, I guess on the site, if that is the northern property line. The buffering, the landscaping, and in particular, moving of the dumpster that was actually on that northern property line that's been relocated to the southern section, away from the residential. This was reviewed thoroughly with the committee, and this is more or less the design that we came out with. This very, very minor changes. So, you know, at this time, staff's able to make positive findings on the variance application, and for the reasons denoted in the staff report. So staff would recommend approval of the variances for the drive-through and for the parking area. Right, so we'll do the variance first.
Did the applicant want to conclude anything? You had mentioned that you wanted to speak before
Just very briefly, I would say that the application that we've submitted and then the testimony that you've heard from Mr. DeBrule this evening do establish that the criteria for the variance are satisfied. And so we would ask that the commission approve the request for the two variances along with the preliminary plan approval. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'll entertain a motion at this time for accepting staff recommendation on the variance requests. Commissioner Zadelis moves. And Commissioner Barberi seconds. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, nay. Okay, Commissioner Lanfear votes nay. Now,
Okay, so the land development project, again, this is something that we had vetted pretty thoroughly through development plan review. It's essentially the same plan. Staff makes positive findings on all the required findings of fact and recommends approval with very perfunctory conditions. One is that they need the water and sewer letters respectively. Need to submit a municipal lien certificate for all lots of record. And paving shall be curb to curb as needed in accordance with the satisfaction of the Department of Public Works.
okay, I'll entertain a motion to accept staff recommendation on the approval of a preliminary plan. Commissioner Zadelis moves and seconded by Commissioner Mancini. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, nay. Commissioner Lanfear votes nay. And the motion passes. Okay, thank you. Next.
Thank you very much for your time.
Replat of lots 86, 87, and 88, the Pierce plat.
This is a minor subdivision with zoning relief and a street extension titled the replat of lots 86, 87, and 88 Pierce C. Plat for preliminary plan. The owners and applicant is Joseph M. Furtado. The location is at this point, 0 Macera Drive, Assessor's Plat 12-2, lots 1796, 1797, and 1798. This is located in the A8 zone for single-family dwellings. Future land use map is single-family residential with the density of 7.26 to 3.64 units per acre. And a summary is to reconfigure the existing 3 lots into 2 new lots, which will be 6,000 square feet for 2 new homes. The zoning map shows you the current A8 zoning, and the future land use shows you the same. Here are the 3 lots combined in one outline. And current conditions is just kind of filled with a bunch of trees. So this is showing you where that's located on Macera Drive. The street view, also Macera Drive is not a complete street. It is not completely finished, so you cannot get super close to the property, but where that giant tree is basically where we're looking at the beginning of the property. And here's the proposal plan. You can see both lots newly configured right next to each other for containing 6,000 square feet each. The zoning relief in this case is requested identical for both lots. So I will just read the first requirement requested is regarding the minimum land area, which is required to be 8,000 and proposed at 6,000 square feet for both parcels. The next zoning relief required regards minimum frontage. The required frontage is 80 feet and the proposed is 60 for both lots. And again, for both lots, the minimum setback zoning relief is required for all 3. sides. So we'll start with the front, which is required to be 25 and being proposed at 18.75 feet. The side setback is required at 10 feet and being proposed at 7.5 feet. And the rear setback is required at 20 and being proposed at 15 feet. The planning analysis regarding the surrounding area is that the subject property is located on the southerly side of Colony Street, westerly of Vera Street, and easterly of Yeoman Street. The surrounding area is all 8 land, with a large proximity of that being A8, but I did wanted to mention that A6 is located to the northeast. The development in the area consists mostly of single family, but there are some 2-family developments in this area as well. The staff finds that this application for 2 new single-family dwellings is directly compatible with the character of the surrounding area. Residential use is permitted in the A8 zone. The proposal is just a reconfiguration of existing record lots, and off-site traffic impacts are negligible. Regarding the consistency with the comprehensive plan, the future land use map designates again that this is single-family 7.2, 6 to 3.64 units per acre. And the proposed density is, I'm sorry, it says above, but it's directly at the line of this density. It does not exceed over the future land use density. Staff finds that the application is directly consistent with the future land use map. And per the comprehensive plan, A8 zoning is again consistent with single-family residential. The proposal is a reconfiguration for a use by right, but there is request for relief from dimension and density. For a unified development review, the staff notes that there is no avenue to construct this type of permitted development on the subject property without dimensional relief due to the placement of the existing houses nearby and the shape of the subject property. Alternatives requiring less relief would restrict the proposed building footprint in a way that makes it inconsistent with the neighboring buildings. The applicant has presented sufficient testimony to satisfy this required finding of Rhode Island General Law 4524-41, which is the hardships. The proposal is compatible with the general character of the surrounding area and comprehensive plan. Staff notes that there is also no reasonable avenue to construct this permitted development without some type of dimensional relief due to the shape of the property. And the requested relief is the least relief necessary. Subdivision and land development review. The proposed development and sought relief is supported by the comprehensive plan, as well as the future land use map. Staff notes that this proposal requires and will seek dimensional zoning relief, which, if granted, will grant compliance with the zoning ordinance. No significant environmental impacts are anticipated. The proposal will be subject to all state and local regulations pertaining to environmental impacts and wetlands. RIDEM's natural heritage map shows that there are no known rare species located on the site. The proposal will not result in the creation of individual lots with such physical constraints to development that building on those lots according to the pertinent regulations and building standards would be impractical. The zoning and location of building lots, utilities, drainage, and other improvements will conform to local regulations for mitigation of flooding and soil erosion. The proposal with the anticipated street extension will have adequate permanent physical access to Yeoman Avenue and Vera Street, both public city streets. The proposal with anticipated street extension will provide for safe and adequate local circulation for vehicular traffic. The staff recommendation for this minor subdivision with street extension The staff finds this proposal generally consistent with the comprehensive plan, zoning ordinance, and standards for the required findings of fact set forth in Rhode Island General Law 452360 and Section 3 of the Subdivision and Land Development Regulations. Staff therefore recommends that the City Plan Commission adopt the findings of fact documented above and approve the minor subdivision with street extension for the preliminary plan submittal, subject to the conditions denoted below. The conditions of approval are that the final plan submittal shall be subject to the following: submission of letters of availability from Providence Water Supply Board for water availability and sewer main extension approval from Veolia Water, submission of complete engineering for street extension, including road profiles and drainage. A Class 1 survey is to be conducted and submitted. The submission of performance guarantee to be reviewed and approved by the DPW Department and Finance Department prior to final plan recording for the street extension. Payment of the Eastern Cranston Capital Facilities Development Impact Fee. And the final plan application being considered by the City Plan Commission prior to the recording.
Does the applicant wish to be heard?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. For the record, Robert Murray, 21 Garden City Drive in Cranston. I'm here tonight on behalf of the owner and applicant, 6 South Drive LLC, of which Mr. Joseph Furtado, who's with me, is the authorized member of the LLC. Just by way of clarification, a couple of issues for your consideration. First, at the time of the application, under the Unified Development Review process, there were 3 areas of relief being sought by the applicant relating to lot size, lot width, and then dimensional setback relief for the proposed structures on each lot. Mr. Furtado and I have further discussed this, and his feeling is that the building envelope to construct a nice single-family home in each lot can be met with the existing setbacks under the zoning. So with your permission, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to either amend or just withdraw that portion of the request related to the minimum setback. I apologize, I didn't tell Brianna that beforehand, but so we'd ask if when you're considering the zoning relief necessary, just focus on the land area and the minimum frontage. The second issue, I want to jump ahead, but just addressing the conditions of approval that the staff is recommending. First, I would note on condition 1, we have already provided the letters of availability for Providence Water and Veolia Water. So we have addressed that. You got those right, Brianna?
I got them. However, I kept it as a condition of approval considering water and sewer were noted within the letters that they are not available at their current state.
No, what the letters say that the applicant will have to extend both those lines, which is standard, but, let there be no confusion. Water and sewer can be provided for these lots, so I'm not sure the wording of that is correct. I understand your position, but from my perspective, we've met that requirement. Like in any, development, the ultimate design has to be approved by Veolia and Public Works, but I think we've met the standard requirement that I've always experienced. The second one would be condition 6, which I think Mr. Marcello addressed in the earlier application, that under the new statute, if I read that correctly, it's suggesting the final plan had to be considered by the City Planning Commission, and I believe that is not provided for under the new statute. So
They took that away.
All right, this one with the final plan, this is gonna get a little funny. Usually this type of application would have had to have come to us completely fully cooked. We felt that taking this now and bifurcating it was in the applicant's interest so that we can get the zoning out of the way first. And then we have to deal with the roadway construction next. The problem with that is that staff is not empowered to set a bond for roadway. So that's probably one of the biggest problems, is that we can't really handle final plan administratively, is that it would have to be handled by the plan commission in this particular instance.
Through the chair, I respect and understand Jason's point, and I do appreciate that, you know, under this due processes, you don't have to fully design the thing until you know you can, you know, you're gonna get the zoning relief. So, you know, this is kind of a conundrum. I have no problem with any of the other conditions, and I have confidence that the Public Works Department would be reasonable in setting the appropriate bond. Mechanically, how this is done, I'll defer to the, I know I'm being presumptuous here, I assume you're going to approve this, but I'll defer to Mr. Marcella and the director and the Public Works Department, but I have no problem with any of the other conditions, and fully expecting that we will have to post a performance guarantee for the work. But the important thing to know is the frontage of these lots need to be, the water needs to be extended per the province water letter. Sewer has to be finally designed and approved by Public Works in Veolia. And obviously, we're going to have to pave the front of these lots. So there's no dispute as to that. So I'll defer to Mr. Marcella mechanically how we achieve that. I'm not opposed to coming back.
Right.
No, I mean, you know, maybe the legislation should have thought of all that rather than having me make it up now, but, I don't know, but I mean, it doesn't, all I know is we don't have the ability to, the planning commission doesn't have the ability to approve final plan.
All right, Mr. Chairman,
We
if,
just can't, legally, we can't send it back.
if, and it's something I've never done, but if the plan commission so orders it, you know, we will handle the bonding and set the bond with DPW administratively. I've just never done that, but if you're comfortable with us doing it, then
Yeah, I
that
mean,
takes away the problem with the
I
final
think, Bob, you know, we could condition it being handled administratively, and then in theory, if DPW set a bond that you were not agreeable with, you would have the right to appeal that administrative act
Right.
to the zoning board or the Superior Court or something somewhere.
I don't want to complicate this.
No, I know. I'm just saying, so.
Nobody wants to complicate this. I just.
No, I think you would have the, if they said, I'm gonna send $1 million bond and you didn't like that, you would have an administrative remedy at that point. It may not be to come back here, but I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I, as a lawyer, I know we always have to, you know, think outside and, you know, encounter all possibilities. The amount of the bond that I expect to be approved for 200-foot extension is going to be, I am confident, even in inflationary times, it's going to be reasonable that my client will be able to apply with. So, but, you know, if the commission says we have to come back, we'll come back. But
I'd rather
I'll
not.
I'll defer to Mr. Marcel.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'd rather not, but if you'd give us the ability just to handle the bond internally with DPW, then we're fine. We can handle this final plan application administratively.
Let's go for it.
That being said, let me just have Mr. Without prolonging this, since everybody knows what this is, but let me just have Mr. Furtado come up for 1 second. Just introduce yourself for your name and address.
My name is Joseph Furtado. My address is 188 Pratt Street in Providence.
Mr. Furtado, you're the owner of the property on Macera Drive, designated it right now as 3 assessors lots, correct?
Yes.
And you're here tonight with this application to replat those 3 record lots and assessors lots to 2 lots. And right now you own a total of 12,000 square feet of land. And since you acquired this property, have you given away any portions of the property?
None.
So this is these 12,000 square foot piece is the piece you acquired, and you're now looking to replat and build two single-family homes on each lot.
Correct.
I'm sorry, 1 single-family home on each lot. And we had several options available. We could try and seek permission to build 3 houses on 4,000 square feet. We could try and build a house on 4,000 and 8,000. In consultation with the staff, the recommendation and the feeling was 2 6,000 square foot lots was reasonable.
Yes.
Do you remember that discussion? Okay. You also agree with me that, as I said at the outset, that initially we were looking for setback relief, which was basically 75% of the setback requirement in the zone. We'd like to amend that application and just focus the zoning relief on the size of the lot and the frontage.
That's correct.
And you're satisfied that you can build an appropriate single-family home within the proposed setbacks that are allowed under the zone.
Yes, I
And earlier this evening, there were 2 gentlemen here, neighbors, who were just inquiring as to the extension of the sewer line. And they left satisfied that what you're going to have to do with the Public Works Department of Viola is a very similar thing they recently went through for a family member. And you understand that through this process, if the board approves this tonight, we will have to submit for final approval a full Class 1 survey and fully design the road and the sewer connection and the extension of water to the satisfaction of Mr. Matus's department.
Correct.
And if that is all approved, then you would proceed forward with this development as proposed.
Yes.
And is there any issues that you're aware of with respect to the topography of this property or the grade that would pose any difficulty with respect to developing it as planned for single-family homes?
No, I haven't.
And how long have you been in the business?
I'm 73 years old. I've been in business for 50 years.
Okay, so this is not your first house?
No.
Okay. And with respect to the surrounding area, when you acquired this, you took note of the surrounding area around Macera Drive and the surrounding streets?
Yes.
And do you believe that the lots as proposed here at 6,000 square feet would be compatible with other lots in the area for both? Strike that. There are both single and 2-family homes in the immediate vicinity, correct?
Correct.
And do you believe that as proposed, these 2 6,000 square foot lots would be compatible with the surrounding area?
Yes.
Chairman, I have nothing further.
Okay, members of the commission, questions? Is there anyone present who would like to be heard on this matter? Seeing none, let me ask Mr. Lima if there is anybody online who would like to address this matter.
There is no public comment.
Okay. So we'll take 2 votes on this one as well. The first vote is zoning relief on the land area and frontage, right? Am I correct? All right. Still learning. All right, I'll accept a motion. Motion made by Commissioner Zadalis to approve staff recommendation on zoning relief. Seconded by Commissioner Coop. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Motion passes. And then we have preliminary plan approval, right? Okay.
Could I ask a quick question?
Yes.
We're approving it without that issue that they talked about? What you call the setback? Yes. Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, this is a project for a pre-application, a subdivision and land development project. The title is 12 Walter Street. It's up for preliminary plan. Oh, sorry.
Preliminary,
Yeah, on the, I'm sorry. I fell
the
asleep.
preliminary plan approval.
Yep,
Uh,
on the,
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Coop, seconded by Commissioner Zadelis. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, nay. Okay, the ayes have it. Motion passes.
they got rid of the master plan too. That's all right. Don't worry about it.
No, thank you.
All set, Bob. Yes. It- You,
Rare, I get that effusive, delight after I sign it.
Oh, God.
Thank you.
all right, thank you.
Okay, and public informational pre-application 12 Walter Street, major land development project.
The owner and applicant for this project is Walter Street Realty LLC. The location 12 Walter Street with the assessor's plat 6-4, lot 1250. The zone is M2, general industry. The future land use is industrial. And the proposal is the construction of 4 commercial self-storage buildings totaling 125,100 square feet with associated parking and landscaping. Here is the conceptual plan with a bold outline for all 4 buildings proposed. And here is the beginning of first rendering, exterior rendering. Another site plan, which denotes zoning and site data, I believe. The first individual building plan is building A of the first floor. Here is building B, first and second floor. Building C, first and second floor. And a rendering of those 2 buildings side by side. An aerial view of a rendering of the 3 buildings proposed in the first phase. Building A rendering office view, which is 1 floor. And a view of the complex. And that is the final rendering and the final drawing submitted.
Yeah, I mean, so it said vote taken, but it's pre-app, so there's no vote. Bob, are you representing? So I'm assuming all these are coming to Cranston because Providence has banned self-storage, so I get a feeling. We'll be either banning them or we'll keep getting them, one or the other. But if the applicant's not here, who are we giving feedback to?
For the minutes.
Yeah, okay. Comments, questions, input?
Is there anyone here from the applicant team?
Project like that, you want to?
Well, okay, the biggest issue on this is that their phase 2 in the rear goes through a right of way that I'm not sure if Twin Oaks owns at this point. So if they own it, Yeah, their phase two is a problem. I thought they'd be here. Staff's not really looking for feedback from the commission, but, we were going to give feedback to the applicant.
Do you want to continue it to allow them yeah, I mean, it's pre-app. so
Did
we
they
wanna
just leave? Was there somebody here for this?
No, he was. Yeah.
Okay,
So why,
all
I
right.
mean, Mr. Chair, why don't we just continue it to allow the applicant to show up? I mean, this is a big project. You would think they would show up.
All right.
Yeah.
They
Okay.
may, even if they decided to apply between now and the next meeting, they're not going to get heard in September anyway, so.
I'll entertain a motion to continue this matter until September 3rd. Motion made by Commissioner Matus and seconded by Commissioner, is it, Coop? All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. We will move this to September. Mr. Director.
Do we want to do any more of this? Do we want to like shut down or what? All right. So the only other thing is our next meeting, well, our hearing is going to be on August 29th, and we decided that, correct? I just wanted to make sure. 5 o'clock?
Yes, I will not be here, but I've spoken with the vice president and he will,
Okay.
he
All right,
will
so-
be here. So you guys might get out early. I'm
So
not-
we are canceling the 21st. We've gotten feedback on just about all of the elements at this point. There's still some fine tuning we have to do, and there's other comments that we can digest from the commission. Is there any appetite to have another workshop before we have that public hearing? I'm not suggesting we do, but is there an appetite? I'm just asking.
I'm not that hungry.
Okay, that's good. That's good news. So, okay, so we will be wrapping up this plan, this draft, pulling it all together, and hopefully, in the next week or so, we will have all the final comments and we can get additional comments from the commission and then have one solid PDF draft. There it is. There's phase one draft. And then we can, work to get that, adopted by this commission. So, in the meantime, right, we'll get ready for the 29th. Okay, so that's that for tonight. Good.
Could we, before we move
Okay.
on, as a commissioner, I'd like to see the version we're voting on the 29th at least a week ahead of time.
We should be able to do better than that.
Okay. So because in case I need to make red lines changes, I want to be able to create them and submit them to the commissioners at the meeting. And the other thing I'll just say is, we didn't go through the goals here publicly. There's a couple of places I'll talk to you, Mr. Director, about, and I'll just, maybe you can help me just one, because it's really, I don't understand it. It's SF-10. And it says, ensure the primary colors shall not suffer decreased budgetary allocations ever.
The what?
That's why I'm asking you.
What was it? Just one more time. I didn't hear it.
Okay, it's CF-10, services and facilities. Ensure the primary colors shall not suffer decreased budgetary allocations ever.
The primary colors?
Well, that's what I'm telling you.
Yeah, that doesn't sound, we don't want them to get a decreased budget allocation.
Okay, but I'm just, the reason I didn't go through all of this,
Let's-
but there's a few of these
Yeah.
things here that I'm gonna have to talk to you about offline. I don't want to take up
Let's
everybody up
do
till 11
that.
o'clock. okay?
Let's do that. This is going to be in our final fine tuning. There's still little things that staff is finding that we're going to clean up before we get our final draft. So, primary colors, that's an interesting
Can I
one.
ask you a question?
Sure.
Why is every chapter a different font?
Is it? All right, could be, yeah.
That's not very equitable to these chapters. They also have the same.
I'd
font.
like to get this all in, when we button this up into one document, I'm hoping that the consultant pulls it all together with one font and unifies it. I think the simple answer is there's multiple hands working on this, and I definitely do too. Yeah. That's yeah, some people might be using some version of Word that's like remote and another one this, and I don't really know. So we will work to get that done. That gives us a few weeks. So, okay, good.
When you send that, is it possible to send a Word version?
There is.
I don't expect that there are going to be a lot of changes because we've been going through them. But if there is, it just facilitates.
We want to get it as soon as we can so that you can get us back your comments so that the comments are not, sight unseen the night of the hearing. That's our goal. So if we can get them to you earlier, you can get us back your comments earlier and we can work with them. That was the goal we wanted a long time ago. So we will work to get this hopefully, sometime maybe next week. But yeah, we made a bunch of progress this month. Okay. Also this month, we've had a lot of work with hiring, and it's been a lot more work than you folks probably think. But we hired 2 people this month, did all the testing and the interviews, and we hired Beth. You've already met Beth. We've also hired a planner tech position that's been vacant for the better part of a year. We've struck out multiple times, but we have a student who's a planning student and doing this type of work for a town in Upton, Massachusetts, and they're managing boards and doing minutes and all the things that we'd want someone like that to do in office management. So I think we lucked out. So you will meet them at the September meeting. So disregard that slide. August 21st is off, but we will send out the draft and the agendas sometime next week. So that's all I have.
Anything else for the good of the city? If not, I will entertain a motion for adjournment. Moved by Commissioner Coop, seconded by Commissioner Matus. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Thank you, everyone.